Emily, I wasn't quite aware how ahead of the curve BHN was when we started talking about Mike Hosking and the Prime Minister. I worked it out that we did it on the night, and it was thanks to Mountain Tui, who let Chewie know about it, and Chewie let us know about it, and then we did it. But even the New Zealand Herald, who are in the same building as Mike Hosking, who are the same company as Mike Hosking, they did it the morning after us. So, as I said last night, a bunch of people, I'm lying, somebody who's quite intrinsically intertwined in the political system says, we obviously didn't break the story, it was ZB, but once we started talking about it, others followed. And I agree with that. And you can see that the conversations are still going on. I do want to continue to talk about it. And because I want to make a couple of points, right? Mr. Luxon is being accused by some, I don't know who, as being a feckless, incompetent leader and non-decisive. However, I would like to challenge that point. I think Mr. Luxon, when it comes to reprimanding ministers, can be very decisive. They just have to be ministers from the Labour government. I thought what we could do tonight is have a look at some of the examples of what Mr. Luxon said about Labour ministers and how quick he was tell them to get out of cabinet, get out of parliament, and then maybe remind you what he says about his own ministers. So it's not unknown that Labor had a pretty bad run with some ministers and some, some issues around them. So I'll give you a few examples from the current Prime Minister. When in opposition, Christopher Luxon said the resignation of Kerry Allen raised questions about the judgment of Prime Minister Chris Hipkins. The PM, that was Hipkins at the time, fronted media about an hour ago, acknowledging that his former justice minister was, quote, clearly not in a good space, end quote, and needed some time away from politics. Her position as a minister had become untenable. In a statement shared by Stuff, National's Christopher Luxon agreed that Allen could no longer stay in the cabinet. It was the right thing for Kerry Allen to resign, he said. We wish Ms. Allen well and hope she is getting the support that she needs. Pretty decisive. She needs to resign. She needs to get out of there. Let's keep going, shall we? How about Mr. Luxon on Michael Woods? How decisive was he as the leader of the opposition around Michael Woods?
Michael Woods got to go at this point.
Good morning. Well, look, I mean, it's looking increasingly untenable. I mean, here we are, the coalition of chaos rolls on to another week, another ministerial scandal within this Labour government, another week where we're not talking about why people don't feel safe in their homes, why our kids aren't at school, and about the cost of living. And so, massive distraction, at a time when New Zealanders really want a government focused on things that matter to them.
Okay, you're saying becoming untenable, though, yep. and that it's becoming a distraction, but you're not calling for his head. You don't think he should be gone from cabinet?
He is.
Yeah, I do, actually. I do. I think, he...
That was pretty decisive, eh? You don't think he should be gone from cabinet? Yep, he should be gone. Pretty decisive.
It's the deal. I mean, we've got Chris Hipkins showing some pretty weak leadership. You have 3 chances for Stuart Nash.
Sorry, how many chances was that for Andrew Bailey? Sorry, I do remember... abusing a worker. There was things around shares, I think, as well with Bailey. And now that's just an irony that it's 3.
Kerry Allen sorts out a conflict after the event, after you raised it in the media. You have Jan Tinetti with her electoral issues and her parliamentary privileges.
So he's very decisive when it comes to criticising ministers and saying what should happen, just not his ministers.
Challenges. Michael Wood told 6 times to sell the shares, didn't sell them. That, to me, is a big judgment issue. And so, I would have stood him down last Friday when I found out, would have got the information together over the weekend. And I think...
As the leader, I would have stood him down. I would have done it, he says. But then he gets an opportunity to do that for his ministers.
When you've been told 6 times to sell them and you don't take any of that advice, that to me just says, I'm sorry, it's not personal, but, you've got to stand down from all ministerial responsibilities.
Pretty decisive, but, maybe it's just a one-off. Well, let's have a bit of a listen to what he said and how decisive he was when it came to Stuart Nash.
Do you think the Auditor General or some sort of other entity needs to investigate his actions within the last 5 or so years?
I think this is a very simple decision. He needs to leave Parliament tonight and announces it.
Holy mackerel, that was like the gold medal of decisiveness. He needs to leave tonight.
5 or so years.
I think this is a very simple decision. He needs to leave Parliament tonight and announces his departure from Parliament.
Yeah, I got that. But in terms of any other steps?
I think there's a lot of questions that you will no doubt start asking about what other issues have gone on, what other possible breaches or leaks may have happened. But all I'm saying is tonight, it's a very serious breach. It just gives you no confidence that he can carry on here in Parliament.
You supported by-election in Napier. You supported by-election.
I think Katie Nimmin would make a much better member of Parliament for Napier.
You support that, like a costly experience, like so close to the
I'm
election.
sorry, but we have standards here. This is a senior minister. This is his 4th contravention of the Cabinet Manual. Chris Hipkins finally faces up to it tonight. It's a serious and egregious issue. It is akin to insider trading. It's very simple. He needs to resign from Parliament tonight.
So when you breach the standards, apparently back then he wasn't saying, oh, well, you know, Stuart Nash, he obviously breached his own standards. He didn't live up to the standards he set for himself, which was his refrain this week. It was quite simple. He didn't meet the standards. He should go. There's 10 more seconds of this.
Well, I mean, I have to be honest with you. The last 3 weeks have been incredibly frustrating because all we're dealing with is Labor government personnel issues. And what we're seeing now is a 6-year government that's actually falling apart, focused on itself and internal issues and not focused on the New Zealand people. We want to talk about Three Waters. We want to talk about childcare. We want to talk about education. Every single week over the last 3 weeks, we've been talking about personnel issues of former cabinet ministers not reading code of conduct as government.
You okay there, Emily? You look like you're about to explode.
I feel like I have just been transported to a parallel universe in which all of this can be said about the last month and a half that we've been dealing with fucking David Seymour. I'm just so confused.
Bingo. And I was wrong, actually. This has got 20 seconds to go from now.
Holy
Controls on Crown entities. Cabinet ministers not following the cabinet manual. And so we've got major internal issues here with this government that's focused on itself, not focused on the New Zealand people. So
I agree. You're just about 2 years too early.
That's how I feel about it. Here we go again this week, talking about 2 ministers, Marama Davison, Stuart Nash, again for the 4th time on issues that are pretty black and white and need to be sorted.
Now, very, very, very decisive as the leader of the opposition. We'll just remind you when he becomes Prime Minister, just for a little reminder, in case you haven't seen it, how decisive he is now.
Being too nice. Would you have sacked him if he hadn't offered to resign?
Well, hypothetical, he did resign.
No, I know that, but just answer the question.
Well,
would you have sacked him?
Well, he didn't meet the expectations of the minister.
So was it a sackable offence?
Well, I think given how clear we'd been on the first incident about what...
It must be me, because he just kind of sounds a bit less decisive. It's probably my ears are playing up on me, I'm guessing.
Can't you just answer the question? Well, this is why you get yourself reputationally in so much trouble. Would you have sacked him? Yes or no?
I can say to you he didn't meet the expectations I have of ministers.
So you would have sacked him?
I didn't need to because he resigned.
I see what you're doing here. I don't.
Well, no, but you're talking about a specific case, right?
Yeah. Would you have said? Look,
have I done a good job of laying down expectations of my ministers?
Yeah,
yes.
Well, no. The answer is no, because your ministers broke them, so you didn't do it. So, in other words, either you didn't do a good job, or you should have sacked him, but you won't say it.
But the next step is really simple. If he hadn't, I'm glad he offered to resign, because I tell you what, if he didn't, I would have sacked him.
He wouldn't have met my expectations as a minister.
Why are you saying it that way? I don't understand.
Well, that's what I mean. If he hadn't resigned, I would have made an intervention. I would have actually. Yeah.
Why is it so bloody hard?
Well,
I would have sacked him.
No, but there's an issue here, which is
what is it?
No, but the issue is that
the issue is I can't answer the question for nefarious reasons that we did not yet know about.
Importantly, the standards are really clear of my ministers. They know the standards I operate within. Whenever we have any personnel issues, I think we've acted incredibly decisively. But what I'd say in this case is I laid down after the last instance crystal clear expectations. He reassured me there wouldn't be another incident. He knew there was an incident. He then actually made that decision himself. It didn't meet my expectations. It didn't meet his.
Count how many words you're using to explain this. This is why you're in trouble in the polls.
That'll do. Because there's one more thing I want to show you. Because the only thing worse than being that bad at not answering the question is the next day answering the question like there's no big deal answering it today. Like actually now backtracking on that waffle and answering the question as easily as this. Actually, I think kind of makes it worse, because what you're doing is you're showing everybody how wrong you were yesterday, and you're showing everybody that you could have just said yes, but you chose not to, which I think makes you look even more feckless.
The Prime Minister also cleaning up a little domestic mess.
Can you clear something up for New Zealanders? If Andrew Bailey hadn't resigned, would you have sacked him?
Yes. That was the word word the Prime Minister couldn't quite find for 3 painful minutes earlier this week.
Would you have sacked him if he hadn't offered to resign?
Well, hypothetical, he did resign.
No, I know that, but just answer the question.
Well,
would you have sacked
Well,
him?
he didn't meet the expectations of the minister.
So was it a sackable offence?
Well, I think given how clear we'd been on the first instance about what
Why
the
can't you just
expectations-
answer the question?
Well,
See, this is why you get yourself reputationally in so much trouble.
He's been roasted for it since.
I said to Christopher Luxon before the election, when asked publicly what advice I would give him, I said if he got elected, he would need to learn how to answer questions. He clearly still hasn't learned how to answer questions.
Why couldn't you give a yes the other day in the interview? Everyone back in New Zealand's talking quite a lot about your inability just to give a clear yes to that question the other day.
Well, look, maybe I could have got to a yes much quicker.
Maybe indeed.
So, the prosecution rests, Emily. Have at it, my friend.
My first thing was that first clip that you showed where he said, I would have sacked him as soon as I found out on the Friday. The decision would have been made over the weekend and he would have been gone by Monday.
Yep.
Didn't happen when that happened on his timeline. No, he had multiple days and a whole weekend for that decision to come out.
And how about the idea that he then just goes, would you have sacked him? Yes. It just seems so obvious that his team has got around him and gone, are you aware at how much of an idiot you look like? I mean, they wouldn't have used those words. Just say yes. Just say yes, for God's sake. So he gets asked it today and he just goes, big smile. Yes. Well done, little fella. You got it right once. You had 40 other opportunities and you got it right once. So proud of you, big fella. So infuriating.
The whole thing just is the strangest of things. My partner and I sitting on the couch and our minds were just exploding watching it with the two of you on BHN and just like, what is this? What are we watching? Why is this a thing? Yeah. Why can't he just answer a simple question? And the idea that like you couldn't write satire that good because it's that bad. It's so beyond reality. But even the thing of like literally you could write that as a script and it could be a satire skit and it would be perfect. I'm just like, that's why are you doing this why are you so bad at this? All you have to do is say this.
It might even be too much. Like if you wrote that as a satire, like Craig said this last night, I think, whenever Craig was on, Craig Rennie, and he said, I wonder if that would be rejected as a satirical skit because no one would have believed it. You know, the best kind of comedy comes from truth. And watching that performance on Mike Hosking, I'm like, yeah, parallel universe. This is not real. What's happening? Is it me? Have I just had a seizure? Have I just had a brain hemorrhage? Because something was not right in the universe. It was very bizarre.
That's how I felt watching all those clips from 2 or 3 years ago of him talking about Michael Woods and stuff. I'm like, you literally could take that exact clip and have played it over the last 2 or 3 weeks with the shit that Seymour, like even the comment of like those two ministers have been running rings around the Prime Minister. Or it's all been like Kitty Allen and Michael Woods or someone, Nash. All this time, you know, it's just these guys running rings, and I'm like, Peters and fucking Seymour. What is my brain?
And let's just shout out to ourselves here. Because, yes, there's been questions and there's been commentaries and there's been articles written about it, but I haven't seen anywhere else in the media they've actually gone, hey, do you remember this Christopher Luxon? The guy whose standard for the previous guys was this? Because remember, we say this so much, I know you're bored of it, we will hold this government to the same standard they insisted on the last one. Now, we just saw the level they insisted on the last one, and he's not holding his lot to that standard now. That is hypocrisy, if I'm using a big grown-up word. It's a feckless twat of a leader if I'm using non-mature words. It's ridiculous.
He's such a different person too, the person that he was then, in the responses of like, you know, this shouldn't be an issue, we should be talking about children, cost of living, blah, blah, blah. And then you cut to now and it's like, it's not necessarily, and it's like, who is this person? No, I wouldn't say it like that. Well, no, we're focused on with growth. I'd just like to say to you, no, we're focused on growth. I'm just only let me say it's just it's like a hard and then the soft, and he's just turning just big softy, but it's still kind of softy with like no substance.
You a fan of Hamilton, the musical, or are you a troglodyte like Chewie and you won't go near musicals?
I have yet to have seen any. If there was an adaptation that was accessible, then yes, 100% I would have watched it. Which I think there is actually. I think there is a musical out there.
Well, it's on Disney Plus, so it'll be online.
Right, that's right. Yeah, no, never mind.
There's a line in it where George Washington and Hamilton are speaking, and Hamilton's putting quite a lot of focus on the ability to win, like winning the presidency. And I'm just reading it to make sure I get the right one. But Washington, who is now president, says, winning was easy, young man. Governing's hard. I'm like, hey, Mr. Luxon, winning's easy, old man. Governing's hard. It's easy to stand over the other side and throw stones because you don't have to do anything. You can promise the earth, the world, the moon, the sun, the stars in opposition, but governing's hard when you get called on to fulfill what you've promised, or when you get put in a position where you have to be able to be nimble on your feet because the media is now holding you accountable to some of your words. Well, not really the media. Mike Hosking once, let's be honest. But when you do, governing's hard. Winning was easy. Governing's hard.